Hello, my name is Michael Lambert, and today I'm going to, well, I haven't gone out of my mind, but I'm going to try and explain to you why I believe that the Tories have every chance of winning the next general election. Now, if there was to be a general election tomorrow, no doubt at all, I think we'd all agree that the Tories would be absolutely decimated. Likewise, there are 5 by-elections coming up, and undoubtedly they're going to get really slaughtered in each of them. There's no question about that. But by-elections are protest votes very often, and you're not voting for a government. So whilst the Labour Party, no doubt after the by-elections, will say, well, look, if we extrapolate these figures, then we'd have a 300-seat majority, and all the rest of it means nothing really. It's just an indication of how annoyed people are with the government at the time of the by-election. So if we look around at the moment and just see our economy and see how badly things are, we look at interest rates, we look at inflation, we look at lack of investment. Everywhere you look, things are bad. Firms are really struggling. Any firms that are dependent upon discretionary spending, such as hospitality or leisure or holidays and things, are all having a really bad time. And the economy generally is just going down and down and down. As I've explained many times before, once an economy is on a downward trajectory, the same with an individual company, once you're on a downward trajectory, it's very, very difficult, virtually impossible to turn it around, especially with such an incompetent and hopeless government. I looked even just today that firms like, for example, Currys, their profits are down 40%. Well, they depend upon discretionary spending. Nobody's got any money to spend now. They're all worried about paying the mortgage, worried about paying the interest rates. I looked at other firms like holiday firms and like airlines. They're all struggling. There's a French group of coffee bars in London. They're closing down and leaving because they say they can't survive in post-Brexit Britain. And it is all because of Brexit, whatever anyone may say. Car production, you might be interested to know, that since 2016, since the referendum, has halved in this country. Now, car production used to be a very important industry. It's a high-skilled, high-wage, high-tech industry. And there's a German magazine that had a look at the British car industry, and we know that we all have to change over to electric vehicles very soon. And this is what this magazine said. It's called Automobile Production. And they said 6 years after the Brexit referendum, the British car industry has hit rock bottom. It is almost begging the EU to postpone Brexit tariffs on EVs. They then went on to say the former Nissan and Aston Martin boss warns of 800,000 job losses. Pretty serious. 800,000, a lot of those are high-skilled jobs. What are these people going to do? I mean, you can't just throw away industries like this. What are these people going to do? They're not going to work in care homes. And this is a story throughout the UK economy. Really, really struggling. Nobody's going to come here and invest. For the first time in 20 years, there's more foreign direct investment in France this year than there is in the UK. And the government have got totally out of control, got no idea what to do about it, apart from Sunak talking all about his rubbish about growing the economy. But 2 things have happened this week which are quite interesting. The first is that Tobias Elwood, the Conservative MP, who is frankly one of the more serious, more sensible, more thoughtful MPs, and I think one of the few you'd say you would trust, he said Brexit has been a disaster, it's been a failure, and that we should seek to rejoin the customs union. The single market. Now that's very, very unusual. No other Tory MP has ever said anything like that. And you can imagine how perhaps Elwood has gone back to his constituents and he's heard more and more people saying, look, Brexit has really caused all these problems. Because people are no longer going to be told that it was COVID. People are no longer going to be told it was Putin that's caused these problems. People are no longer going to accept the fact that, it's just as bad everywhere else, where they're going on holiday and seeing it's not so bad everywhere else. And so I think he perhaps will have gone back to, because he had more and more people saying, look, the Brexit is really screwed up, I wish we could reverse it or something. And so he's a bit smart, and he's come back and he said, yeah, I want to get elected next time. I'm going to start saying, yeah, we should try and reverse at least part of Brexit. And I have a feeling that more and more Tory backbenchers are going to find the same. They're going to go home and they're going to hear more and more people saying Brexit screwed everything. Now, the other thing that happened, which was quite remarkable, because I think we all know that more and more people every day, more and more people realise that Brexit is an absolute disaster and it's causing all the problems that we're suffering at the moment. The Daily Express, they carried out a poll. Now, the Daily Express is the most right-wing of all the newspapers. It's the most extreme pro-Brexit. They were banging on about Brexit. They were almost fanatical about it. They're a really extreme newspaper, where all the red wall, sort of read by all the red wall voters and so on. They carried out a poll, and the question they asked was this. They said, should the UK seek to rejoin the EU single market? Now, don't forget, these are all red wall voters, people who voted for Brexit, express readers, xenophobes, people who hate foreigners, taking back control. They got 32,785 votes. 69.5%, that's just under 70%, said they would like Brexit to be reversed. So that's a huge, huge number of people who previously would have been very pro-Brexit, now wishing it had never happened. And I think you just see swarms of people changing their minds all the time, becoming anti-Brexit. I've got a neighbour. He voted for Brexit, and I remember asking him at the time, I remember the conversation for a while, I said, why did you vote to leave? He said, I don't think we should be bossed around by people in Brussels. I think we should take back control of our own laws. Nothing about immigration. We live in an area where there are lots and lots of foreigners. No problem with foreigners at all. Taking back control, that's what he wanted to do. Had no idea what it meant. I saw this guy about 2 days ago in the street, and we just stopped, had a chat, passing the time of day as you do. And he said to me, my gosh, he said, the country's in a mess, isn't it? He said, do you know what I think it is? He said, it's Brexit. We should never have left the European Union. Completely forgetting the fact that he was so keen on it and wanted to take back control. And there are millions and millions of people who are saying, the state we're in now, the mess we're in now, the anxiety that everybody feels, the worry about what's going to happen, and are people going to lose their jobs, our business closed down, are people going to lose their houses? All this stems from us leaving the EU, turning our backs on the biggest, richest, most successful market in the world. People are realising it. And when a significant majority of Daily Express readers say that they wish we hadn't left, and the people who actually still support Brexit, I'm talking about people like Farage. I mean, look at him, how pathetic he is these days. On television all the time, whining about it. He's on Twitter whining about the fact he can't get a bank account. He's saying nobody give him a bank account, and therefore he may have to leave the country. He's probably actually paving the way for leaving anyway, running away. And you look at that Tice fellow who runs Reform. I mean, how pathetic he is. He looks like some sort of supplied geography teacher, sort of guy who would have leather patches on his sports jacket. Although I don't think he'd be clever enough to teach geography. And see how the Reform Party did in the council elections. I mean, they've got absolutely no hope at all, because all the people who voted for Brexit, they're all deserting them. And there's that bin Habib, I don't know if you've come across him, Pakistani guy. He's now British. He came here when he was 15 or something. A guy, I think he's as smug as Rees-Mogg, completely and utterly smug, very shiny and very. He dresses a bit like a head waiter in a sort of a third-rate hotel, and it's got ideas beyond its station. Very, very la-di-da, and he was on Question Time the other week. I think he thinks that Brexit would have been all right if we'd had a proper arrangement with Northern Ireland, if we didn't have a border, if goods weren't being checked on the way in. I think he wants to have a border across the middle of Ireland. And these three, and so many more of them, all these nutters, who are largely responsible for us ever leaving the EU. They're like members of a football team who played for 85 minutes and they're 10-0 down and they're saying, oh, we can still win, we can win. But anyway, it's all a dreadful mess. And in Parliament you've got the thickies. You've got Anderson and Gullis and those. I mean, they'll never change their minds, I don't suppose. And a lot of the old fogies, incidentally, the really extreme right wingers are standing down at the next election, so there'll not be any problem. But I think people are generally seeing the Conservatives as being really not a very nice party. There was a question time before last when they were in Clacton and everybody in the audience had voted to leave and so on, and they were all pretty right wing, I think. And Fiona Bruce asked them if there was anybody in the audience who was in favour of the Rwanda scheme, who thought it was a good idea. And out of 120 people, not one of them put their hands up. And she asked them 5 times. 5 times she asked, and not one person put their hands up. See, I think people are actually, when it comes down to it, when they stop and think about it, people are very reasonably decent. People realise that we've got a problem with immigration, we've got a huge problem, it needs solving, and we have to find a way of solving it, we have to find legal routes and all the rest of it. But to actually send people off, punish people, desperate people by sending them to Africa and dumping them there, I don't think many people like that idea. And there was a disgraceful story last week whereby down in Dover there's a special centre for children of immigrants who've arrived in the UK. And they've tried to make it quite nice, and they put up a mural with some Mickey Mouse drawings and so on to make it a little bit more friendly for these miserable children. And if you think about it, we all want to be nice to our children. We always want our children to be happy and to have fun and to play and to go to school and to have secure lives and so on and not have any worries. Well, these children that arrive in this country, they've come from terrible countries. Maybe their parents have been killed. Who knows what, and they've come on these dreadful journeys, horrendous journeys, and then they've come across the channel in a little rubber boat, no doubt absolutely terrified. They arrive in the UK and they go to this centre for children with the Mickey Mouse on the wall. Robert Jenrick, that sort of greasy spiv of a man, honest Bob, immigration minister. He went down to the centre and he saw this Mickey Mouse. He said, that's too friendly, too welcoming. We don't want to welcome them here. Paint it out. And he got them to paint it out. I mean, how nasty can you be? This man's worth millions and millions. He's got I don't know how many houses. How nasty can you be to want to make children unwelcome deliberately? And I think people don't like that. People turn against that. I think people are too decent to support that sort of stuff. But I do want to say a little bit about Sunak, because I've come to the conclusion he's really a rather nasty little man. I really don't like him at all. I think he's arrogant. I think he's selfish. I think he's self-centered. I don't think he gives a damn about anybody. And I think he's the sort of person, he's never had anybody argue with him. He's always had everything he wants. He can have everything he wants. He's got enough money. I think people have always said yes to him, and he really objects to being questioned about anything. I think he's in this job. He's got this job, and he's no idea what to do. He made these stupid 5 pledges, none of which he's going to be able to fulfil, which are now priorities. I think the man is completely out of his depth, and I would imagine he can't wait to get out of the job. But anyway, he appeared last week before the House of Commons Liaison Committee. Now, I'll just explain, if you don't know, that for each ministry in government there's a select committee. There's a committee of assorted MPs who can call in the minister every now and then and question them. It's a sort of a check on what people are doing and finding out and so on. And about twice a year, I think it is, the chairman of each of these committees, there are about a dozen of them, they all get together on this liaison committee and they quiz the Prime Minister. Last time I saw it, I think it was Boris Johnson. He was there for about 3.5 hours. And it's very thorough, and they all are questioning about each department, and they've got lots and lots of questions and so on. And it was, it's usually quite a thorough affair. Well, Sunak appeared before the Liaison committee last week, and when he arrived, he said he only had an hour and a half. That's all the time they could have. Bernard Jenkin, who's the chairman, he said, oh yes, Prime Minister, no Prime Minister, 3 bags full, Prime Minister, it's nice of you to grace us with your presence and so on, and very subservient, and said yes, and then proceeded to rush everybody who had to answer a question, because it all had to be rushed through in an hour and a half instead of normal 3 or 4 hours. So Sunak had to go off after an hour and a half. And he didn't have to meet a head of state. He didn't have to have a conference call with Biden or Zelensky or anything like that. No. What he had to do was get in his car, drive down to a hospital in South London, shake hands with the matron or the manager or whatever, have his photograph taken, and get in his car and come back again. He had a photo op because he didn't want to be answering questions from lowly MPs. When he was being questioned, he was clearly irritable. He gets quite cross, quite bad-tempered, quite insulted when he's asked questions. You know, he's so reluctant to answer questions that he's next week he's missing PMQs, Prime Minister's questions. It'll be the 9th time. It'll be more times. He's missed more Prime Minister's questions than any other Prime Minister in modern times. He's only been Prime Minister a year. Does one know? And when there are contentious issues, like, for example, when Owen Paterson, when the vote was up as to whether or not he should be punished for taking money for influence and so on, he didn't turn up. Sunak had something else on that day. And when the Privilege Committee report was before Parliament, he didn't turn up to vote there because he didn't want to influence anybody, he said. He's the Prime Minister. And so when he was questioned, Chris Bryant was probably the star of the show, really, because he asked him a number of questions, and he said to him regarding the Privileges Committee's second report, in which they criticised 6 MPs and 2 members of the House of Lords, all Conservatives, for trying to undermine the committee in support of Johnson. They were all censured for it. And Chris Bryant asked Sunak what he thought about that, and did he think they should be punished? And Sunak's reply was he hadn't seen the report. This is a report by the Privilege Committee criticising 6 of his members of Parliament, and he hadn't seen the report. The report is 4 pages long. But also in the report were the 2 Lords, one of whom was Zach Goldsmith, who he sacked. So he said he had the time to read the report. But he did know that in the report it said that Zach Goldsmith was one of the people involved, and therefore he'd sacked him. And then Chris Bryant said, did he think it was right that somebody donating to the Tory party should be doing business in Russia? And he went on to mention a company called Unitrack. And Sunak said he'd never heard of the company. By this time he was quite irritated. Never heard of them. Didn't know who they were. Unitrack had given £600,000 to the Tory party. Quite a lot of money, really, for the Prime Minister not to have ever heard of them. And it subsequently turned out these people are supplying mechanical equipment to Russia, be trading with Russia throughout. And the owner of the company is a guy called Mohammed Mansour. He happened to have been the transport minister in Hosni Mubarak's government in Egypt until he was sacked. He was transport minister there. He was sacked. Obviously got a lot of money now. And he personally, it is said, has given £2 million to the Tory party, and Sunak did anything about it. You see, Sunak, as far as I can see, I mean, he doesn't want to be Prime Minister. He just wants out of it. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about the country. He couldn't care about anything. And as I mentioned in a previous video, his wife has given £3 million to a college in California, a college which will be perfect, if it were to get into, it would be perfect for their 2 daughters when they shoot off to California after the next election, assuming that, assuming they don't go before then. Now, I think Sunak is very unpopular. I mean, there's no question about that. He's unpopular in the party, he's unpopular in the country. Nobody really likes him. He's not a nice man. He's so aloof. He's so far away from everybody else, and everybody knows he couldn't care less. And I think there's every chance there'll be some move to unseat him. you already talk about it. There are four candidates, providing that Ben Wallace has already said he doesn't want to be Prime Minister. The four candidates are the three witches, the three psychopaths. That's Braverman, Patel, and Badenoch, and the fourth is Penny Mordaunt. Now, if any one of the three witches is made leader of the Tory party, then they are completely finished, because the whole country is going to desert them. But if Penny Mordaunt were to become a leader of the Tory party, I think that would improve their standing a great deal, and she'd be a fresh pair of hands. And I think she looks right, and of course she's English, and which probably does matter amongst the Tory membership, a lot of Tory voters, and I think she would improve the standing of the party a great deal. But that wouldn't be enough to win the election on its own. Now, the reason why I think the Tories have got a very good chance in the next election is partly because, as I explained, they are now realising that the nearer they move towards rejoining Europe in some way or other, whether it's joining the single market, customs union, whatever, the more they give voters the idea that they are open to a closer relationship with Europe, to going back into Europe eventually, the more people are going to support them. All these Red Wall, Dead Express voters, because they all want to go back as it was. But the opposition, Keir Starmer, has made it absolutely clear for the last 18 months or so, absolutely crystal clear, unequivocal, that under his leadership we will never, ever attempt to rejoin the single market, customs union, agree to free movement, or even over his dead body rejoin the European Union. Never, ever, ever. And when he first said this 18 months ago, I right away I said this is crazy. All he had to say was, look, we had a referendum, people decided, we respect the decision, we're not going to go back into any of these things, we're going to stay out. But if things change in the future, who knows, things may change, something may happen, and people may change their minds or whatever, we may consider some sort of different arrangement. That's all you had to say. Just leave it open. Said that, he's bolted the door. Bolted it, bricked it up, put electrified barbed wire all around it. There's no way out. And so you have the Labour Party. You've got really first class front bench there. Some really excellent people. If we compare the Labour Party front bench with the utter shambles, this rubbish of people in government, there's no comparison. So much better. But they're all saying, no, it's our policy, never going back into. And I can tell you one thing, this is absolutely certain. There's no question of this whatsoever. Outside of the EU, we have no chance of recovering, ever. It'll take years and years and years and be very, very slow. And before that happens, we're going to go down and down and down. This is what's happening now. And so for Starmer to have locked himself out of any possibility of rejoining single market, customs union and so on was madness. And at the time, I remember people were saying, oh no, it's all cunning plan. What he's got to do, he's got to get the Red Wall voters just to vote for him. That's why he's saying that. And the press, they'll all go against him if he says if there's any possibility he might reach. Dead Express, 70% of the voters, Red Wall voters. Dead Express, they're the press. They're all against him now. How does he get back from that? And 70% now of Express voters say they would like to rejoin the EU. Wish Brexit never happened. What's that going to be by in a year's time when we've all got poorer and poorer and poorer? When things have got worse and worse and worse, and we're all more stressed. We'll be desperate to get closer to Europe, but not Keir. He's not having it. No. Can't go back. We're on the road to ruin. We have to keep on there. That's our decision. And how's he going to do it? They say Starmer's very clever and so on. I'm sure he is academically. I'm sure he's very clever, like Sunak. He's probably quite clever academically, but they got no common sense. These people got no wisdom. They got no political skill. Okay, he's purged the Labour Party of the left. That's probably electorally a good thing. But in terms of moving on his feet, he's got no idea. These are his missions. I mean, his missions. This is number one of his missions. Bear in mind the economy is an absolute mess. Everything is collapsing all around us. Terrible mess. And what's he going to do? The first of his missions. Secure the highest sustained growth in the G7. How? Better than America? Better than Japan? Better than Germany? France? Italy? Canada? Better. We're going to all go past them all, and we're going to sustain this growth. Show them all how it's done. We're going to do this with good jobs. Don't want any rubbish jobs. No. Good jobs. And productivity growth. We're notorious for our bad productivity. Somehow he's going to make it all grow. And this is going to happen in every part of the country, making everyone, not just a few, everyone, better off. I mean, it's just nursery rhymes. It's just utter gibberish. We have to find a way of getting closer to the EU, of trading more with the EU. He's talking about, Starmer's talking about, he's going to renegotiate the phytosanitary agreements, movement of animal products across frontiers. He talks about, we haven't got a very good deal, we're going to renegotiate the deal we have with the EU. The EU have said 1,000 times over they're not going to renegotiate. They're sick to death of negotiating with us, been negotiating for years. They've had enough of it. They're not going to renegotiate a deal, giving us a favourite as a deal. In any case, as long as barriers, red tape, remains between us and the EU, it won't matter anyway. Whatever he renegotiates, it isn't going to make any difference. The fact of the matter is, it's now very, very difficult, because of Brexit, to deal with the EU. And as I've said before, all wealth really comes from economic activity, and the job of any government should be to make it as easy as possible for businesses to become established, to grow, and to prosper. And what Brexit did, it just smashed everything with a sledgehammer, made it so much more difficult, and put us behind these enormous barriers to trade with the EU. Absolute madness. But anyway, that's why I say I don't write off the possibility of the Tories winning the next election. I think they wised up to the fact that if they start admitting that Brexit was a failure, they can row back in, and at the same time, Starmer's shut that door. If you want Brexit, you want Johnson's hard Brexit, vote Labour. Terrible shame, but there it is. Anyway, I'm sorry if that's a bit longer than usual, but that's what I think about it. And if you've watched this far, thank you very much. And until next time, bye for now.